Cue music. And hello, everyone. I'm Dan Lutz, and welcome to the FrontLines in the battle against the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminati, and all those that wish to enslave all of humanity for their own selfish reasons. Thank you all for joining again today. We've been covering the Great Awakening the last couple days, the tremendous amount of energy that's been coming through the planet. You know, the rate of change, how we see things is progressing, so that we can see much more of what has been keeping us asleep, what all of the issues are, everything that's been coming about from, say, from QAnon being presented and then coming true 2 and 3 years later, so that the future, which is now, is proving the past, what was said back then, as proof that there is a plan. I think that's the importance of this construct, of knowing that there was a plan, a 16-year plan to destroy America and thereby destroy the world as we knew it, in order to create a new world order, which has been a plan for hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years. And it's from, the banking families, you want to say the Illuminatis, all of those that have been conspiring and chomping at the bit to create one world in which they controlled everything, and used the Babylonian money system created in Babylon, the same system of lending and creating debt, charging interest to countries on the money, that the country should just be printing the money on their own. Why do they need to pay interest? It makes no sense, unless you understand that the system is not just about those countries. It's about a worldwide system. So we're waking up to this. Many people have been awake for a long time. I've known many people on this bandwagon looking how can they outwit the system. How can they overcome it? How can they maneuver it? Right? And they always trying to basically find that nuance on how to make it happen. I had my own tactic, all right, on how to do things. Now, I wasn't a tax protester from the standpoint of not going to pay taxes, or I wasn't going to be a revolutionary that was going to go out there and hold seminars on how to overthrow the government. It's not me, right? So, but I had my understanding of what was there, and for a long time, I took very positive steps towards creating a new financial system. Now, I've had people in my life that thought that I was a little bit out there with this, right? People that were in the financial world, they listened to me, and they, maybe not agree about everything in the beginning, but eventually they came around. I just realized I might not have had my volume up high enough on my microphone, so I just turned it up now, so I hope everything was okay, but it may have been fine. So, I had a friend who had a company, and he was retired at the time, where he was, he managed money for large funds for the elite, and he was very much against the evil part of this, right? And he was someone that didn't want to bend the rules. He always followed. And the funny thing is that those people out there that let's just say were at the top of the financial system wanted him to manage their money because they knew that he was trustworthy. Funny, right? But anyway, so in discussing these things, he would make comments about, well, how are you going to make this happen, right? It's how are you going to be able to convince all the world, right? All of the countries, all of the banks to use this system, and my answer was, well, build it and they will come. Create that format. Now, there's more to it, obviously, but I was trying to keep it in a simplified manner. Is how do you do that? So right now, my simplified version of this is the new path forward, which is what I have been using this rainbow ribbon behind me as the new path forward. Basically, to come out of a debt-based system and into an abundance-based system. And I've had, some rounds at making this happen, right? And going back to 1999, where I actually was buying a subsidiary of Gateway Computers called Amiga Computers. The new system was going to be hardware-based, but have a lot of the functionality of things that would be really needed today. That project got derailed. Further went down the line where I was creating a social networking e-commerce platform where I used biometrics to track every individual. That was called Personami. It was used to monitor. I did it to HIPAA level of security for medical records, so that everyone's data was their own. No one could see it. Only way you could get it was with your own fingerprint. There was no passwords for us to bypass the security and get to that information. That's in principle what we were building, right? So that also got to a certain point, right, and was successful. But also, now the component that was really the last piece of that was really the financial mechanism, which I at the time was looking at cryptocurrency on how to implement that. So even though I was working with this and talking about encryption technologies, and I had filed for 4 encryption patents and received 2 encryption patents. The idea was really about how could you create a system where you owned what you did. Now, right now, if you're on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all these things, in their terms of service, somewhere in there, they're going to basically say they own what you have on their platform. So I wouldn't be surprised if Facebook comes out one day and says, well, you want access to these pictures, well, you have to pay. Well, those are my family photos. I put up all my kids' photos there, and they're mine. And Facebook says, no, they're ours. So this is what I saw as a very big potential problem in the future. So that's why I want to make sure anything you did in the system was yours. You should be able to monetize it if you want, or not. Right? You could, let's say, even monetize it anonymously, or by promoting yourself. So anyway, those are a lot of the thoughts. But again, it comes down to, how do you have a money system, right? How do you have one in which it's fair for everybody, right? Well, that has to deal with open architecture, meaning that here's all the blueprints. Here's everything you need to know in order to basically use this system. This is in contrast to open source. I was just having some conversation back and forth with Dustin Nemos about this in particular because of his, and I don't understand, a lot of people are pro open source, and I get it, right? I really do get it. I was there at the beginning of time of open source, but I took the stance at way back then that although this is very well to want to do for the community, right, of programmers to work together and to make the best product, it came down to one thing: ownership, and could you make money with it? Now, in the world of Star Trek, there's no money, right? So everyone does the best that they can, and they make achievement, and that's their currency of the time, or you may have rank or whatever. But for whatever reason, they didn't need money. So this is some utopian view that's out there in the future. Now, is it a 20 years in the future? No, can't say that. 100 years in the future? Well, you might start to think of that maybe it's not so important. 1,000 years from now, could it be there? Sure. We could evolve to where money is not part of what we're doing. It's just not necessary. It's nothing to do with where we're at right now. Money is really necessary. Every time you have a bill due, and if you don't pay it, you don't have food, you don't have electricity, you don't have the way to get to work. You have no way to move forward. You literally will be on the street and begging for food, right? So there is a necessity for money at this time, but not the system that we have. And in order for us to move to a place where money is not necessary, someplace out way in the future, we have to have a system that's fair right now. And when we talk about dealing, a lot of the cryptocurrencies of the day are using open source. And I get it, right? So I'll give you kind of an example. Open source with, let's say, Ethereum. Ethereum, one of the top, could say the number 1 cryptocurrency in the world, or the number 2, or at least in the top 3. It's been that way for a little while now. And they're topped out in their transactions per day, around 600,000 transactions per day. And but they built on an open source. Another cryptocurrency came along, or an individual that said, hey, let me take this open source and let me go ahead and create a new cryptocurrency with it, but we're going to follow the licensing agreement, open source licensing agreement. I'm not sure which one they're using, but it's an open source licensing agreement, meaning that you can take this code, right, and then you can change it as long as you publish the changes and everyone has access to those changes, still under open source licensing, still the same license. And so Tron did that. They made a new one that was, let's say, that had a different engine for doing the transactions. So what that meant is that they did not top out at 600,000 transactions per day like Ethereum. In fact, they're doing over 900,000 transactions every day, and they're actually considered down in the 10th cryptocurrency, 10th out of the top 10. They're down at 10. They bounce up once in a while and they get up into the 5 position or something like that, but they always go back down. They're floating around the 10, even down to the 15th, but they're still in the tops. And their level of each coin is only pennies, 1 cent or 2 cents, but they have more transactions than anyone else. Anyway, those actual changes that were done to allow these more transactions were part of the new blockchain system of Tron. So this is when looking at technology. So I'm launching Gold Grain Coin. So where do I want to place Gold Grain Coin is on a blockchain for accounting purposes, right? So that's what a blockchain is. It's a way of doing accounting. That's all it is. It just happens to be a chain of information with some formats that have been standardized. That's all a blockchain is. So I looked at Tron and said, I'd much rather put it on the Tron blockchain, which is stable, which can grow and is not topping out. A lot of people are still making Ethereum, what they call tokens. And so there's some standardization and all this. But this open source is if you're not going to make money with it, or how can you make money with it? Because if you do a lot of these open source things, how do you make money with it? That's where all the difficulty came in, because it's a system which I compared in an article I wrote when buying Amiga computers from Gateway. Everyone knew that this was happening. And so I had all of the open source crowd chasing after me. Open source the OS, open source the OS. The Amiga operating system needs to be open sourced. And I said, absolutely not. I said, well, all this, if you look at operating systems as governments, you could say, I made the case that Amiga operating system was capitalist. And the reason was it was about the individual. You could make anything on this open architecture platform. And the other operating system, like Windows, was a fascist dictatorship. And that Apple was a benevolent monarchy with King Jobs at the front, that wants the best for his subjects. But you got to do it the way of the king. The king wants it done this way, you got to do it that way. You can't have all your own tools and all your things and develop it right into the core of the system. And no. You got to do it this way. Well, that's okay. It's a good system. I love Apple's products. So it's good to be the king, though, right? So then you had Linux, which was the socialist system. And that's what they wanted me to do, is open source the operating system. And I said no, because what happens in socialism is just a step away from communism. And that what's going to happen is there's going to be a dictator that rises. And when that dictator rises up, then you have communism. So it transitions into a communist state. And that would not be good for anyone, because then not only do you can't make money at anything, you can't own anything, and nor is there any other possibility of you using something else, because you would be restricted. You would only be able to use this. And then at the time when writing this article, within I'd say 6 months of that, there was a battle between Linux major providers. Red Hat and Caldera, they had squared off 1-to-1. Each one decided to become the dictator, right? And literally said, well, you got to do it our way, right? Say if you use our tools on only our system, they go, no, but that's not what the open source license was, right? So there was a battle. So anyway, I was just trying to make the point back then that the capitalist system allowed for the individual to make money, to make a livelihood for his family. And I'd seen it time and time again with the Amiga system. And it was, even to this day, a more up-to-date and advanced system than anything that we have today, even talking through, the best Apple system out there. I'm not saying that there aren't faster processors. There are. I'm not saying that there aren't, different types of graphic cards and all kinds of things. But the way they operate together is archaic, right? And it's hard for them to move past that, right? Because they're stuck in the path that they're on, which doesn't allow for too much innovation, really doesn't. What's the last real innovation other than the internet? So you get social media. You could say that's the innovation. So anyway, and let's just say that I've been on this path for a while to develop a new way, a new economy, and as I call it right now, the new path forward. And the reason that it's a new path forward is because everything that's out there is based upon that old roadmap, the old operating system of the computers that I was discussing. You know, they cannot deviate too much, but there is something that is happening, and that is that the existing central banking system, the parasitical system, is being dismantled. The question is, what will replace it? Now, if you want to sit back and wait to see who comes up with the ideas of how that's going to, what it's going to look like, and you're relying upon the people that have been in this financial system to come up with the new, better system, they only know what they know, right? They know only their reality. Hard for them to see something completely different. And that's what the facts are. You know, whenever you're an economist, right, and you want to basically, you know, work off of all the stuff that you've learned, and you say, this is the way the economy works, and this is how it is, right? But you're basing that upon what you had learned. It's not about something that you have no idea about. So a parasitical central banking system is what you know. And then what on top of that, you know the illusion of what they're presenting as the way the system actually functions. And as long as you go along with that, and you're basing everything that you know as the economist, as the expert, on how something is going to function in the world, that's the only thing you know. So when I talk about a new path forward, it also means a new way of thinking about what a new financial system is. So a few times, even the last couple of days, I've mentioned, you know, there is no reason why that the government has to collect a tax. And a lot of people say, well, of course they do. You know, they have to collect the tax to pay for things. I said, well, why? They're not doing it now. They're not doing it now. Haven't been doing that at all. Right? They've been only collecting money as interest payments and giving it to someone where they then go ahead and borrow more. So if there was no interest, and it's another big upsetting thing for the economists, well, you have to have interest. You have to be able to make money off of money. And I think that's actually wrong. I think that you shouldn't make money off of money for the sake of money, meaning charging an interest rate. You know, but you should be able to go ahead and make money or create money for the economy and have it based upon some sound principles, mechanisms that allow for not the runaway creation of money for no reason other than you want to create it, which is really what we have now. But they say in the illusion that they don't do that, but it's exactly what they do. And what I see, you know, is happening is in this transition is that there is a realization that the parasitic system right now takes all of the wealth and transfers it to the central banking system, to the people that are above it, without getting into who they are and all the everything else behind it, right? All of the wealth, all of the asset, all of ownership of everything goes through this system. So if you want to basically now, you know, make a new system, what do you have to do? Well, you have to level the playing field, number one. You have to basically, you know, dismantle that. Well, one of the things you have to do is reverse the flow. You have to basically take back all of that in a legal fashion, right? Within the illusionary system that has been created there, you have to take it all back. So towards that, we're going to listen to a little bit of X-22 from today. So let me go ahead, let me cue that up for you. We might get to some cue as well. All right, let me go ahead and well, I'll just leave it on here because it's just the X22 report. It's from, it's called "The Economy is Lifting Off. Treasury has access to the printing press." All right, so let's listen.
Trump, the Patriots, they have been pivoting, transitioning to the people's economy. And with each piece that they transition into, we can see that the new economy is definitely taking shape. Now remember, over the pandemic, what did we see? We saw the Fed being brought into the Treasury. Now, the Treasury, they'll be making an equity investment in each SPV and be in a first loss position. What does this mean? In essence, the Treasury, not the Fed, is buying all these securities and backstopping the loans. The Fed is merely acting as a banker providing finance.
Well, let me stop it right there for a moment. So SPV is special purpose vehicle. So in this pandemic, one of the things that was set up and agreed to by the legislature is by the Congress and signed into these emergency bills, right? Was this system that is now happening? The Treasury is going to now has ownership over these. Ownership is the wrong word. It says he's saying that they're in the first loss position, meaning that if those vehicles go bankrupt, who gets to capitalize on that is the Treasury. So if those SPVs buy anything, buy all the municipal bonds out there that the cities need to make roads or whatever their project, pay teachers, pay police, now that those bonds or those municipal bonds will be purchased by the SPV so that it keeps them running, right? And where does that money come from? Well, from the bank that's lending the money, the Fed. But they've tied them together legally. So this has to happen. So if the SPV is going to buy something, the Fed is printing the money and putting it out there. Boom. Treasury's in the first loss position, meaning if these SPVs for any reason in the future can't pay their bills and have to go bankrupt, who gets to say, hey, well, I'll take ownership of what I lent you the money for? It's the Treasury. So if these SPVs not only buy municipal bonds, but hey, the stock market is crashing, someone go out there and buy up a lot of stock. Buy up 50% of all of the corporations on the stock exchange. And they go into the SPVs. So the ownership of 50% of all of Wall Street goes under the SPVs because everything else is collapsing. And plus they have an infinite credit card with the Fed, being able to just print as much as one. Now they're doing trillions upon trillions, and why not do quads upon quads to acquire Wall Street, all the corporations. So if you ever listen to Karen Hudes, she's former attorney for, or I think she's head attorney for the World Bank. But she blew the whistle on them, and then she became an outcast. But the ministers around the world still voted for her to be in there, but they don't let her in the door anyway, even though the ministers, a legal format of this, the finance ministers from different countries can basically vote for her to be the one. They did. They still won't let her in the door. Something wrong there, right? So, but, she was talking about this network of global control, global corporate control, where you had these interlocking board members that were, let's say there's 150 major companies. Let's say there's 150 people. There's more than that, but those 150 people each have a seat on the board. That means they'll all be connected. Now, it's not as elaborate as that, meaning that it's a little more nuanced, meaning each one is only on 10 boards, for example. Can't be on all, but at least one of at any one time they have the same people talking to each other in a big circle. So they're all in the controlling system. But those people can be replaced if you own more of the stock. right? You can actually, as the owner, so these special purpose vehicles could basically own Wall Street and then replace the board members in there. That is a corporate takeover, or in essence, a deep state removal. All right, you remove the deep state, you remove the cabal members from all these corporations, and by them, in the meantime, the American people end up owning the corporations. Right? And I said, if you did that, would there really be any reason to collect any taxes from the people? Or shouldn't it just be from the corporations, which is what income tax really is? It's a tax on corporations. But they convinced everyone that you're a corporation because you have a birth certificate entity and you agree by raising your hand. Hey, are you this all capital letters industry? I'm sorry, all capital letter entity, or is that you? And you always say, yeah, and they take you at your word and you go ahead and having to pay. So that's the trap, right? That's the whole thing, how it's all put together. But no reason to have people, as agreeing to be that, which is, ridiculous anyway, but they convince everyone that that's the way to do it. Hey, you got a driver's license, so you got to have all caps entity on there. Is that you? It's got your picture. Is that you? Anyway, so if the special purpose vehicles buy up everything, and the Fed is now like under the Treasury, this is what is a way in which we could basically transition to a new path. We can remove the parasitic system that's even in those corporations, and then let alone all of the horrible things those corporations end up doing by putting poison in things, say fluoride everywhere, or anyway, I'll get into that. Let's listen to a little bit more of X22 just to get a couple more points in here.
This essentially merges the Fed and the Treasury into one organization. In effect, the Fed is giving the Treasury access to its printing press. This means that in the extreme, the administration would be free to use its control, not the Fed's control, of these SPVs to instruct the Fed to print more money so it could buy securities and hand out loans in an effort to ramp financial markets higher going into the election. So Trump, he has taken control of the Federal Reserve, moving it into the Treasury. With this control, he controls the central bank system. Now, why does he want to do this? Is this the beginning stages of restructuring the Fed? Of course it is. Is he going to do everything all at once? No. He needs to take this one step at a time. But with the pandemic, with the National Emergency Defense Production Act, it allows him to do things that he wouldn't be able to do before. They've given him this power. And with this power, he can change the economy very, very easily. This is why he's talking about tariffs, or removing tariffs, or placing tariffs on other countries to get some of the small businesses here back online. This is why he's talking about deductions for the restaurant industry. Now, he understands that the restaurant industry is hurting. It's going to take a little bit of time to get them back on their feet. Same thing with hotels. And this is why he's looking for deductions. This is why he's looking for payroll deductions, tax deductions, I should say. This is why he's looking for deregulation. He's going to take all these businesses that are struggling right now. He's going to allow them to get back up on their feet and then to expand. This is the plan.
That is the plan. So it is about creating a new path forward and about emphasizing on the individual small business so that they can be independent of the government, not relying on the government, so that we really can go out and create abundance. So this is just one of the things that we can see that's happening. So now, but in the government, right, we're now talking about how this is happening, right? Do they actually, what do they actually be able to do when they own all of these corporations, right? Can we make that transition? Well, let's define that as the path. Let everybody, go after that. Let's get this conversation started with the people that that need to go into government, right? We've got people. Let me point out something else over here. Let me share my screen. So this is. 1 second here. It wasn't set. There we go. So this is on Parler. So this is Dr. Winnie Hartstrong for Congress. Right now, Dr. Winnie is on Parler. I'm going to go ahead and follow her. I waited until you guys got on here so we know that we could get the following, and I'll go ahead and click the little bell and say I want to go ahead and do that. So she's running for Congress, right? And I've been seeing her around. So here's her on Zubrick, right? So let's over here, David Zubrick. And let's listen to her a little bit of what they have to say here.
So other than being in academia, it sounds to me like although you were a very active person politically, you didn't feel the necessity to get involved until this incident regarding George Floyd. Your home state is Minnesota. Then I take it Minneapolis. Were you from Minneapolis?
Right. That's right, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you saw this all play out on May the 25th. What was it when you saw this that struck you as odd? The reason I ask that is because obviously the mainstream media has been pushing a narrative that, this is what happened, that this Derek Chauvin and these 3 other police officers, took Mr. Floyd down. And so, that Derek Chauvin suffocated him, that he said he couldn't breathe and all that. When you were watching all of this play out, as some of us do in the alternative media, what struck you as odd about it, first of all?
Wow, so many things, but I'll start with the fact that Minnesotans are very nice people, David. When my family, my mom and dad, left West Africa to come to the United States, they were welcomed with open arms by the great people of Minnesota. When the Somali immigrants were leaving the refugee camps in Kenya and all of the Horn of Africa, all of the East African refugee camps, and were getting resettled in Wisconsin, in Minneapolis, in St. Paul, they were welcomed with open arms. Minnesotans are some of the nicest people that you will ever meet, and there's even a term for it. It's called Minnesota nice. That attitude that you get from the typical Scandinavian, where it's like, how's it going? I'm great. How are you? And it's always jolly and good. So the first thing that struck me was, where in the world is this attitude coming from, that someone would kneel on another person's neck and my fellow Minnesotans would walk by and do nothing? And, it just didn't seem right on that count to begin with. And then I started to piece together what other people had noticed. The fact that this happened after Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota had issued a safer at home order requiring some COVID-19 guidelines, such as the wearing of masks. I didn't see that from the police, not from George Floyd, not from anyone on the street. Also, the angles change like every second. You're getting a whole new angle on this incident, and it feels contrived. It doesn't feel like it's flowing naturally. The people in the background sort of jeering and saying, "Oh, you're gonna get fired! Like, what are you doing to him?" It felt a bit over the top. A typical reaction would have been more of like a gut feeling, like almost like you want to jump in to save that man's life, and I didn't see that. So these are some of the little clues that got me thinking something's really off here.
Yeah,
All right, so I'm going to stop it right there. I just want to point out that this on David Zubrick's channel. It's a Dark Outpost, 6/17/2020, deep fake technology and George Floyd. So that's what she's talking about here, deep fake technology. So, I want to just point that out and just say, she's running for Congress, and she is now getting a lot of support. She's got 1,700 followers on here on Parler, and she's just started. She's got 30 parlays. How many parlays do I got here? I've got 33 parlays. Right, and I'm up to 319 followers. So please, do follow me here. My link is down below. 323. But I just wanted to point out is that we have the people showing up, right? That are seeing through the garbage, right? We talked about it on the very first day. There's something wrong with this George Floyd. Now, whether or not that was a mannequin or not, I've seen another video where after they took it away and there was another side view, it looked like there were legs, but they were very thin laying there. It still looked very odd. So again, I don't know. It does look staged, meaning that they're stop and start, and they cut from here. The audio from the very beginning where he says, "I can't breathe," right? And then the other people are saying, "Oh, what you're doing?" But we have another video that saw this all happening, and they walked around from the other side, from the street side, and walked around, and you could see there was no one on the sidewalk at that time. So, was that scene created, and they just took take one, take two, assembled it? The EMTs were not EMTs. They were wearing bulletproof vests. Come on. It's not right. Something is up with that. So she's noticed it, and we need more people that notice these things to now stand up and run for government. Really, that's a big part of this. We need to basically remove these people that have been there and just giving us garbage all of these years, trying to basically pull on the heartstrings. It's for the children, number one, right? So that's not going to work. Oh, racial divide, racist. This is all old, and we can also recognize the Operation Mockingbird, that it's just repeated amongst all the talking heads. It's exactly the same word for word on all the stations, all saying the same things. And in this interview with Winnie, right there, she also said that her videos went viral in Europe first, like in Ireland, and the people in Ireland are saying, why are they trying to get us to be upset about George Floyd? And why Black Lives Matter? It's like it doesn't make any sense for them. But it's the same video. It's like so Winnie was saying that the globalists are lazy, right? They want to take one event and make that be the whole thing. And anyway, but once we get new people in there, right? This is when we can literally start talking about what a new financial system should look like. What is it supposed to be able to do? It's supposed to be able to allow people to, let's say, borrow money from a bank, and then that money is, let's say that for a business, they say they want to make a business, they borrow that money, and let's say the business fails, right? So what? The money was out into the world, it moved around, a lot of benefit, and that particular thing did not take off. It failed. Should that person forever now be under debt and not be able to move forward? No. The system right now, if you declare bankruptcy, you're not able to pay it back because it's too onerous. Most people have to fall into that. Now they start to restrict people from being able to do it. So if you're like a student and you went to college on a degree that would not make you any money in your life, but you spent $250,000. How you pay it back? You can't buy even a house. You can't bankruptcy. You can't get out of bankruptcy thanks to Clinton. They made that against the law. You can't get out of paying for your student loans. Not very friendly to the students, is it? Isn't that Democrat side of things. Anyway, so listen, I'm not saying not to pay what you owe, but the system is too onerous. That's the problem, right? It's a parasitic system. It wants to drain you of everything. So we want an abundance system. We want a system that's able to lend. And if you're going ahead and you're making a good effort at it, right, and it failed, well, maybe you just need a little more money. You ever try and, if you've ever been in business and you needed a little money to get over the hump, right? That's very difficult to come by, right? Or it becomes very expensive to get. Why should it be that way? It shouldn't be that way, right? If the money is abundant, as it has been in going out into the world, but it's only been collected by the few, if it actually was readily flowing to all the people, that they could go ahead and make their businesses, and maybe 3 times the charm, and they make the third business work, right? Money should be readily available for everybody, and so we can create a system that's that way, that it's the same for everyone. Everyone has the ability to have access to the money. Everyone is not restricted from having a bank account because you can't keep a minimum amount in there every month. They close you down because you have absorbent fees, or a check came through and your money wasn't in there, so they charge you an absorbent fee. Gee, you didn't have the money in the bank to pay for the thing anyway, so now you get them like stacking. You get like several checks all coming at the same time. You're off by a penny, and all of a sudden, none of the things go through, and you have all these fees. It was twice as more than the money that went out. The system is flawed because it's about taking from the people instead of it being there as a service for all people. So again, parasitic system versus an abundance-based system. We can have an abundance of money because we have an abundant planet. We have a very creative people that can go out and create things. So we have to look for those answers. We have to support getting new people into office to remove those people that have been there for decades upon decades, enriching themselves and allowing everyone else to become poor, and even scheming to where they become their own kings and queens as the country is dismantled. And there you get over a certain territory, and they sold out to the cabal, to the deep state, so that they think that they are now entitled to owning everything. So, all right. So let's move on a little bit here. Again, I wanted to point out that Parler is becoming very popular. I'm starting to follow more and more, of the super conservative elite. So Mark Levin came up today, and so I followed Mark Levin. So I wanted to bring this up. This Black Life Really Matters is the name of this video. Now I took this off of a Twitter account, and I tried to I made the video for it so I could get it on Parler, because I think in his 2 minutes he describes everything really well about what Black Lives Matters, right? And so I said, this Black Life really matters. Hashtag this Black Life really matters. So let's listen to what he has to say here.
The Qanon. It's from Damani Felder, and he says, my boy, the Damani Felder, just destroyed the entire Democratic Party in 2 minutes. It's a wonderful piece. I thought it needed to be reposted because I'm sure Twitter will remove it.
To the feckless, hypocritical, virtue-signaling Democrat leaders of America, you took the time to kneel for George Floyd so you could pretend to care about black people, but I know the truth you continue to ignore. So now allow me to call you on the carpet for your many failures in the black community that you refuse to acknowledge. How about kneeling to acknowledge that the worst riots and the worst instances of police brutality in this country are in your cities alone? You are the common denominator. How about kneeling to apologize for having some of the lowest minority, literacy, and graduation rates, but some of the highest single motherhood, abortion, and black-on-black crime rates in your own district that you yourselves represent? How about kneeling for the millions upon millions of black children who never had a chance to live because your friends over at Planned Parenthood butchered them before they even had a chance to be born? How about kneeling for the untold numbers of my ancestors who were lynched by your former counterparts in the KKK for simply daring to ask to be treated as equals? They didn't get justice, and even today, by kneeling and apologizing for your white privilege, you still don't treat us as equals. You feel like you have to apologize for your privilege because deep down you still think that you're better than us by default. If you'd actually held your friend Amy Klobuchar accountable for not prosecuting Derek Chauvin when she had the chance to after he had 10 complaints filed against him in his 19 years with the Minneapolis police force, maybe George Floyd would still be alive. The fact of the matter is, if you had to take a knee for every black life lost needlessly due to your failed leadership, you would be on your knees forever. The only black lives that matter to you are the ones that fit your agenda. You know it, I know it, and the world knows it too. Your party is the one that filibustered for months to prevent the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Your party is the one that only had 23% support for the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, and had 0% support for the 14th Amendment, which granted free slave citizenship, and also 0% support for the 15th Amendment, which gave us the right to vote. The policies you have implemented have been the figurative knees on the necks of my people for centuries, and it is because of you and your failed leadership that many of us still can't breathe today. But I've got news for every last one of you. If you think all you have to do is shamelessly pander and kneel to get the support of people like me, if you think you can wear the kente cloth of the Ashanti, an African tribe known for selling their own people into slavery, if you think you can tear down statues and rename buildings and roads to hide your sordid history from everyone, if you think that's all it takes to win over my people, if you think our skin color will keep us from thinking critically, you've got another thing coming. I'm Damani Felder, and that was absolutely nothing but common sense.
Excellent,
Wow.
Damani Felder.
Wow, that Black Lives really matters. Thank you so much, Damani.
All right, so yeah, that
This tweet was just posted.
oh, we're repeating. All right. So there we go. I want to make sure that got up there. Please come to my Parler. Join Parler. It's growing quickly, and we're going to focus on this as a place where we're not going to be censored, and that's what's really important. Is that we have a place to go, and Dan Bongino has now a financial interest in this. So his credibility in this market, in this arena, will help let it grow. And this is now a bastion of where patriotism and free thinking and free thought and reality weavers can all flow to. I make sure to follow everyone that appears on my channel, my Parler account. Oh, it's on. I guess it's on my Parler. Yeah. So, and remember, it's Parler, not OR. And make sure that we help support everyone else that comes here, and build this group up. All right. So, let me switch back out of this, and I just want to now say some parting words about again what I've been working towards is developing a cryptocurrency that would not be a vapor coin, a one that could withstand the changes as the world comes about by linking it to the price of gold. It's called the gold grain coin. A grain is the smallest unit of measurement of all of the coins. Of all the measurements, sorry. So there's grams, right? Everyone knows grams, and there's ounces, right? Everyone knows kilos and pounds, right? But this is the smallest amount. So it's about a little less than 15 grains for 1 gram, or 480 grains for 1 ounce. So it's an easy way to know. You see whatever the price is per ounce, which is a common available number that people always say what it is. Oh, it's around $1,700 an ounce right now. We'll divide by 480, and that's how much a grain of gold currently costs. So this is so by doing that, and also by using the existing financial system that uses gold as and recognizes as having value. If we we look at a system, right? How do we take advantage of that for the benefit of everybody, is by acquiring 1 grain of gold, and we store it and then use that as as leverage to create more value for the coin in order to go ahead and make sure that we have enough crypto backing the coin. So this is the plan, right? So that we acquire gold, use that to create more value behind the coin, so it's always backed by, say, Bitcoin, so that there's enough going out whenever someone wants to turn it over. But we positioned it as what's called a stable coin. That means that it's like the US dollar is considered to be stable, right? As a coin, it's called USDT or USDC or USD, so on. There's about 5 different versions where they use the US dollar and link it to the US dollar. We did it to gold for the reason is that we can see that the fiat dollar will lose value over the next couple of years, right? Until it's replaced with an asset-backed one, right? And so while that's happening, there's some value loss, and that's been, the US dollar's been losing value for 100 years, right? Every day it loses value. Now, just that means is that it takes more to buy the same item than it took 100 years ago. So a $20 suit yesterday, sorry, yeah, you couldn't find a $20 suit, right? But 100 years ago, a $20 suit would be the finest one that you could get, right? But you can't do that now. But if you had a $20 gold piece from 100 years ago and took that $20 gold piece, which isn't now would be worth, say, $1,700, you could buy a really nice suit. So that just says that the value of the dollar keeps losing over time. So if we're looking at what's happening with gold, it's actually going up. It's going up like 30% the last year, and probably I think it's 25% the year before that. So over time, we can see that it's shifting. The price of gold is going up, and it's going to continue to go up for the next few years at least. So locking into the gold grain coin allows for you to actually have something that's going to be stable. And having an upward pressure, on the price. So that's a good thing, better than what would be coming out of the dollar. So anyway, this is what I designed, and we've been working on our own exchange for this, which is the technology for it is done. There's still some testing and stuff on it. We also built an auction for it as well. We've had a couple of about a handful of auctions so far, and we'll be holding more auctions. And we have plans for making more sites that are going to be using that gold grain coin. We call them grains, simply, right? So get your grains and then use them. That's what we want to do, is create that economy, create businesses. So if you have a business out there and you want to basically accept grains, right, as a form of payment, you would be able to convert that ultimately back to, say, dollars if you needed to, by going through Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, now links to even bank accounts. Certain banks will actually link directly to it around the world. But at least you can get there by your own bank, by certain wallets that are already connected to banks, such as Coinbase, which is probably the biggest one in the world. So this is where we're headed with it. I can use a lot of help to help build this economy. Believe me, there's a lot to do. I've built a good blocks. They're in place. Now I need to start helping people build businesses with it. So if you got a business idea and want to accept grains, that would be wonderful. Contact me for that. This is a very good way of moving into a next economy. So let's use this as an opportunity to help make steps towards the new path forward. I guess that's enough for today. I appreciate everyone for all your time and all the things you've been doing. Just where this is like 460 some episodes directly in a row. I was also one other thing. United News Channel is making steps. I actually shot some of my promo material for that before this I started this broadcast today and got that sent over, and so it's pretty simple. It's just saying this. I'm Dan from the Philippines. I'm I flubbed it. Sorry. I'm Dan from the Philippines. I'm United News Network. Oh, see, I said network. United News Channel. Flubbed it twice. But that's what happens. Hey, I took many takes and they were all great, except for maybe 4 or 5. So that's what happens when you're doing things live. Sometimes it just doesn't come off. That's why we do many takes when we're doing pre-recorded stuff. So I guess that's it for today. Again, I appreciate everything. I'll see you tomorrow, and thanks for showing up.